Andrew. And now it's a great joy. It's been years since we last saw each other. For me to grant the floor to Smilen Markov from Bulgaria.
Thank you, Sotiri. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Yes, thank you. Dear colleagues, I won't be talking about COVID, in fact. I will be talking more about the link between theology and science. And I think this is the context in which we have to situate the entire debate, not religion and science, but theology, because we have theology, which is, apart from other things, epistemological practice. So we have these two to talk to natural science or to natural sciences. Of course, I have my opinion on the pandemic, and it's a strong one. I'm sure you are familiar with it. But I don't consider my opinion very relevant, since I'm neither a bishop nor a virologist. So I can really...
Excuse me.
Yeah.
One bit louder, please.
Thank you. Yes, of course. So I won't be sharing my opinion on COVID because it's I don't think it's very relevant, and I also think that it's difficult to speculate on COVID, on the pandemic, since it's not over. We really don't know what's going to happen. Thanks to God and thanks to the vaccines, we seem to be in a group, to have a grip on the disease, but how it will go further, we really don't know. And furthermore, we have this another disaster, namely the war against Ukraine, which happens to be the largest Orthodox country in the world. And it's a religious war as well. It's obviously Putin's regime is a quasi-religious project. So, and I think, though, that the failures that we as Orthodox manifest during the pandemic, that we are about to do the same mistakes in view of the war. And what do I mean by that? Well, I have observed the situation in the United Kingdom and in the Republic of Bulgaria during the pandemic. The two countries, well, they have a very different strategy, and whereas the UK has been one of the most successful countries in dealing with the pandemic, Bulgaria has been one of the worst cases. The country has the highest morbidity rate, or the second highest in the world. However, the striking thing is that the reaction of Orthodox didn't vary. So the Orthodox reacted in the same way in Great Britain and in Bulgaria, and that is namely the wrong way, according to me. Of course, there are exceptions, but the main strategy, which was dictated by bishops, by metropolitans, was a strategy of protecting the church, as if the church is here to protect itself. And according to me, this is in direct violation of the decisions of the Council on Crete, where it said that the church exists for the world, it's not for itself. And the perspective is completely reverted in that, keeping our practices, of course, observing the measures of the state. In both places, the state has introduced some measures, and both churches have observed these measures. But the entire rhetoric was, well, we observe the measures and we continue our normal course of life. And in fact, the pandemic is a great opportunity for the church to be a church, to act as a church, which it didn't do, I think, because where there is death, suffering, pain, despair, where there is imprisonment, because the quarantine is an imprisonment, a blessed imprisonment, there, this is the opportunity to witness for Christ, to give a witness. And And we didn't do it. We didn't do it neither here, neither in Bulgaria, nor in Great Britain, I think. Of course, there are exceptions, but the exceptions just confirm the overall picture. And the same failure, I think, is about to happen with concerning the war. This rhetoric, which is, you know, politically impartial, or just condemning the war in general terms. And recently I was, something struck me, and I think it's very telling about the entire attitude towards what's happening. In a parish which started to collect food and other supplies for the refugees, someone said, why should a Orthodox parish collect supplies for the refugees? There is the refugee center. Every one of us is free to go there and donate. What's the purpose of collecting these things here in church? And the same attitude was there during the pandemic. We observe the measures, but otherwise everyone is free. Those who are afraid, okay, let them stay. We won't condemn them. Those who want to come to church, let them come. We're open. Let everyone decide. And this, I think, shows a deficit in our understanding of what church is and what church discipline is. Of course, these problems have deeper roots, and of course they have to do with our attitude to science, to natural science. This is not a new problem in European history. John Polkinghorne, the physicist, the English physicist, who is also he is famous for his apologetical writings. He enumerates many cases in which certain scientific developments, certain scientific paradigms cause cultural wars among Christian communities. Such a very famous example is the appearance of the evolution theory during the 19th century. Darwin's theory was very powerful. It still is, but of course it has, a critic was leveled against it then. And for instance, the anatomist Richard Owen pointed that Darwin's thesis is problematic to some perspectives of anatomy. A physicist, Lord Kelvin, wrote that, the length of the period during which the sun is shining is just not enough for Darwin's evolution to take place. So this critique was, so to say, adopted by certain circles in the Anglican Church, and they started attacking the theory using these arguments. But obviously, there were their concern, their motivation was not strictly scientific. They wanted to defend something else. They were worried about something else. They were worried that our concept of human being is defied and destabilized. Later, of course, some scientific discoveries gave answers to the critics. For example, the objection that the period of the sun, that the existence of the sun is not enough for the evolution to take place, was corrected because, scientists discovered the atomic activity, radioactivity, and they discovered that the sun is actually driven by nuclear fusion and radioactivity. So the supply with power to shine and heat are enough for billions and billions of years. So there is time for the evolution to take place. I think here there is a more fundamental problem which is posed by science, and also by a type of rationality that is dominant in Europe after the Middle Ages. And it's dominant also in the modern theological traditions to a great extent, which causes even more problems. The thing is that if we look at science only as a means for explaining reality and not giving or expressing the meaning of it, we come to a state where we face indefiniteness, indeterminacy. We are, and this violates our conception of a human being, the idea of human freedom, of meaning of life, of spirituality. These ideas are violated. Of course, the good thing is that these problems are not new. And Christian tradition, Christian theological tradition, and the Byzantine theological tradition has dealt with similar problems. And I think it's worth looking at some solutions in order to, to search for solutions for the present day. For instance, the Galenic turn in physiology was a great challenge for Christian anthropology. Not only because, according to Galen, shifted the entire, the structure of the human body, and the center becoming the brain, not the heart. There are other challenges. Galen describes complex models of regulation between the parts of the body, and these models they are not reduced to the humoral regulation. And the thing is that this problem, this complex regulations just defy the idea of moral agency and autonomy. And Nemesius of Emesa, the great physiologist of the 4th century, tries his best to reclaim territory for autonomy, for moral agency, for free will, for rational control of human behavior and of human life. But he's not completely successful, since, according to him, important aspects of human being, such as anger, the volitional potency, are out of rational control, or at least out of complete rational control. And given the complex chains of causality which are drawn by the Galenic physiological model, this means that in our life we simply endure processes that are not ours, and our our freedom is defined by such ideas as fate, as necessity, as contingency. And this indeterminateness, this indefiniteness was exacerbated during the 9th century, because, of course, physiology developed, the experimental physiology developed, and the experiments reveal a complex structure of the human body, each organ and each system having specific functions. And this, this plurality of functions and bodily organs and systems, this is a threatening plurality. One asks, where is the meaning of all this? Where is the space for human moral agency, for freedom, for the image of God, and so on? And I think it's worth mentioning the approach of the 9th century Byzantine physiologists, who well, try to find a way out of this, but without falling in the trap of cultural wars or of anti-scientific statements. They pointed out that, well, they pointed out something which nowadays is, I think, also an issue in modern physics, even, namely that the experiment is something conditioned by certain factors, by personal judgment, and also by the progress of knowledge. And the trick, so to say, of 9th century physiologists was to actually focus the entire debate on proper anthropological, to present it as really as an anthropological alternative. Because human being, of course, it can be an object of scientific research, but at the same time, the human being is a subject who is doing this knowledge, and we have to keep in mind this complex dialectic. And one of the physiologists of the 9th century, Meletius, developed this and stated that human soul, being the agent of knowledge, has two functions, two noetic functions. The one, namely, is intelligible, proper. He calls it noiti, knowing itself. And well, the soul has disposes of true knowledge of itself. It's self-reflexive. But on the other hand, there is the what he calls noera, the noetic knowledge, which is manifesting itself within the bodily life. And this manifestation is, well, a process of hiddenness and unhiddenness. There is an apophatic and cataphatic aspect in this. And from this perspective, the what was perceived as a threat to personal identity, namely the body, the causalities of the body, its dependence on natural processes, now is seen as a platform for gradual, lapidary, of course, controversial, but meaningful revelation of the personal identity within the soul-body union. There are other technical aspects here, but I'm skipping them. I want you just to have the gist of the argument. But well, this is an epistemological turn or a method. The interesting thing, I think, that the theologically relevant thing is that this shift was was commensurate with the developments of Christology, and namely post-iconoclastic Christology after, during the second half of the 9th century, which accentuated, and I mean here figures like Photius, but also Nicetas of Byzantium. In their Christological speculation, they focused on the what is called enusion of Christ's hypostasis. So the relation, the link, the active relation of the hypostasis to human nature and the meaning of this. And thus, in this broader Christological perspective, this hidden and this problematic revelation of the hypostatic identity within the human body, with all its difficulties and problems, becomes also relevant in terms of economy, in terms of Christ's salvific activity. The vulnerability of the human being, of the single human being, becomes meaningful, becomes revelatory. And interestingly enough, this paradigm was further developed in the speculation on the law. And interestingly, also Photius' interpretation of the public, not the political, the public sphere as a body with organs, performing their functions, but having also their existential energy, proper energy, which is meaningful in terms of the synodos, in terms of their common way, common ground, which leads, of course, to salvation, to the historical, to the eschaton. So this idea was interwoven as a concept of law, as a concept of social life, as a concept of public life. Thus, interestingly, methods and principles from the sphere of physiology filtered through the Christological lens, so to say, entered the sphere of law, of social history, of social theory, and this was a very elegant way of finding a common paradigm, uniting natural knowledge, not uniting, but providing a common ground between natural science, anthropology, Christology, and legal theory. So I think we have to look at such brave, of course, very brave, but profound example. There are many others. Of course, this is just one example. When we discuss the common ground for today's problems, and it's also very important, I think. Also in terms of the 9th century debates, but also in terms of the current debates, to very carefully shed light on some aspects of the different concepts that become somehow that remain obscure or darkened. Very often this happens because of ideological bias. So the task of theology is, in the first place, hermeneutic, to articulate what remains hidden. And by the way, the law in the interpretation of Photius is not so much a principle of moral judgment, of normative, be it a Christian normative model. It's a hermeneutical tool expressing the plurality of reality and offering perspectives that point to divine economy and to salvation. So I'll rest my case here, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear Smilen. Any questions? I do have one, as usual.
Thank you.
if I may. This was a very deep inquiry into the philosophical, if you like, backstory of certain issues that concern us. How do you see the interplay between those issues and the public discourse, where, for example, my problem, as it were, is that I find no connection whatsoever between history, philosophy, and the reality of science, religion, and their interplays, and how these are presented ideologically in the public square. Do you see any way to salvage this, if you'd like? Can there be any change that is led by a more scholarly understanding of things that would be grounded in social reality and not simply be a scholarly undertaking?
Well, I think the scholarly discourse can help us vocalize certain concerns and motivations in the public debate that really remain hidden. For instance, take the debate on vaccines. I know many people who are not ideologically anti-vaxxers, but they refuse to get the vaccine because they don't trust the system that provides these vaccines, namely the health system and all the political establishment. And the question why, as to why, I think is not because they are uneducated, but maybe because in a way their starting point is that they feel excluded from this system, that they feel victimized, that they feel marginalized. And we have to really delve into this. Why is it so? Well, they say maybe they help, but I don't want to be helped by you and by your system because you don't treat me in the proper way. And what is the proper way of treating these people? Maybe we have to revise our meritocracy concept, which is very fundamental everywhere, even in church, in the university, in society, and realize that strict meritocratic way of thinking about society is not, well, first, it's not Christian. I mean, it it violates the parable of the prodigal son, meritocracy, but also it also violates human dignity. And in order to offer alternatives to this meritocratic model, we have, I think, to rehearse other models, other language of talking about we as community, we as we. I think the modern Russian emigre philosopher Semyon Frank has a very interesting model of society. He differentiates three levels of social interaction. The first one is the contractual level. It's what we do with others, our dealings, everyday dealings with other persons. The second level is what he calls, well, the laws, the norms, but there is, he says, a third level, which is very deep, and he calls it sabornos. Conciliarity. We can call it moral judgment, or a fundamental, deep experience of a community, which is not based on merits. It's not based on profit. It's not based even on moral values. It's based deeply on the fact that we share something in common. It's an ontological reality. And he says when this feeling of this experience of subornos is damaged, we have very bad, on the surface, there are some repercussions. Yes. So and I think science in theology, the dialogue between theology and science can help us offer perspectives for overcoming this. Vulnerability is a great thing. We shouldn't be afraid of admitting that, well, science proves humans to be weak, to be vulnerable. Well, but this is exactly why Christianity works, in our vulnerability. Also, the idea of personal health and public health, and all these issues, I think they need really a new grammar. And a new grammar, it means a traditional, deeply traditional, because our tradition comes from the future, as Nicolaus Ludovicus likes to say. Yeah, I think we have to be creative and to be brave, and and not leave a different aspect just hushed up.
Thank you very much. Alexandro, I think you have an observation or question.
Yes, I would have a question, and thank you very much, Milan, for your very interesting points. Still, I mean, I have a, I kind of understand what your position is, and you have emphasized the fact that in Bulgaria, the church hierarchy somehow took this defensive position in which, you know, like saying that the church was attacked and it was basically
No, not in Bulgaria. No, in England it's happened the same. I mean, the
yes, like
Orthodox
the
Church in
Orthodox
England,
Church.
it
I
was
mean,
the
it's
same.
like it
And I
happened
think
in
everywhere,
Romania
more or
to a
less,
large extent.
more or less.
We have this phenomenon. But I mean, I go, you know, I agree with you, but still, on the other hand, I would still like, you know, I mean, looking from a different position. I mean, when you discussed about the fact that why this, you know, people who do not trust the vaccines, it's because they basically they feel that the system which is producing the vaccine is not giving them their proper place, and it's an issue of frustration. And of course, it's also an issue of confidence, because as I said in my intervention, you know, basically some people who are like basically very actively engaged. I know, I mean, I can make that difference, you know. It's like I mean, for me, it's not that if like Adolf Hitler says that outside is snowing and outside it's snowing, you know, I'm gonna put something, you know, it's snowing, you know. It's like, it doesn't mean if like I like Adolf Hitler said it. It's such, but the perception is still that, like, I mean, I would want to see what your opinion on the fact that still, okay, many people did, I mean, in Romania did attack the church during this period, and they were like, you know, like extremely vicious, and you know that they were, I mean, what I'm trying to say is not that to try to take to justify and take a defensive position, but like in my point of view, they were part of the problem, and part of the problem when I'm like trying to talk with people from within the church and to convince them of what I think it's a good thing to do. I get stuck by the fact that, you know, people are caught up in these conflicts, which you know, it's like it's not only them, you know, who are to blame for that. I mean, I know, for as a Christian, of course, you need to, you know, you need to fight, choose it for yourself. But the reality of the fact is that you know, that's a reality, and I think that the church has to react to that as well. But
Well, it's a matter of opinion. I personally, as a member of the church, when I hear people attacking the church, I always say, well, it's not enough. It has to be attacked more, because the problems are even more serious than a person outside the church can see them. Yeah, a priest told me recently, we just failed. I mean, we dramatically failed, and we betrayed Christ because we started quarreling about things like the spoon and so on. And but it's in a trial, the place of the Christian in a court is a witness. We are not judges and we are not advocates. We have to be witnesses. And I think the witnessing part was missing. I don't say that the discussion on the Eucharist and how to do it is not important. It's crucially important. But I think we have more fundamental problems with our conscience as a church. The idea that everyone does things individually. This is, I mean, the church is not about individual doing things. Of course, it's a personal choice to be in the church, certainly.
No, well,
once you are in the church, you do things communally, and the attendance of liturgies is obligatory. It's not optional.
Of course.
And if we don't do it, we don't do it. But it cannot be a personal decision with some. I mean, that's. And we really, I think, miss the authority of the bishops. I was ashamed to observe a parish in the States where the bishop said that spoons will be, no, the priest said that spoons will be changed because of hygienic reasons. And the people said, no. I mean, but he said, well, but this is what the bishop told me. And they said, we're not interested in what the bishop says. We just want it to be like we are used to. And that's scandalous. I mean, what are we? We are just, we are bishopric church. The bishop should take responsibility and of course bear the responsibility. And when there are cases of COVID in the church, I can go to the bishop and say, well, because of your decisions, these priests died, and we have some cases. and he has to take responsibility, even criminal responsibility. But I mean, the bishop is there for such situations.
Of course, well, I understand what you're saying. What was still what I was asking, and don't know if I understood correctly, is like still, I mean, are there like like criticisms, attacks on the church, which are some are legitimate and some are illegitimate? And of course, I'm not taking the position. I mean, I don't want to put this into this type of thing where I'm kind of like, defensive and saying, oh, the church is attacked and we should oppose everything that the people outside the church are saying. And you're saying that, oh, it's not, and we should like agree with it. I was wondering whether still, I mean, it's like you left the impression that you did not differentiate between, because I saw a lot of things coming from outside of the church, some which was perfectly legitimate, some which was, I could add more to that, some which were coming from me inside the church, but I also saw stuff which was like, I mean, really, I think that other people we should claim standards from other people as well, not only from us. So,
well, no, I think in this case, the Orthodox Church was just doing wrong, and I think the critic was too weak. That's my personal. But for the bishops, well, the bishops, most of them, they took very, very strict measures. They get vaccinated. They restricted the number of people they have contacts with. So the bishops were in a privileged position, whereas the priests and the normal faithful, the laos, they were just left. Of course, there were priests who introduced measures who reacted adequately, but these were exceptions. They were left. They were just left. And we have many cases of COVID cases of priests. And of course, there's no statistics. These things are hushed up. That's just a scandal. I mean, in this, I don't say that any critic against the church is justified, but in this case, the critic was even too weak. And I say this, I speak with priests. I mean, they were just desperate. They were really torn between reality, their Christian conscience, and the conformistic position of the hierarchy.